kids, welcome to another Drum Emporium. I am working on another snare drum. This is the one that matches the Tama Superstar kit that I bought. These drums are birch. These lugs are beautiful. They're this, I don't know what they call it. It's a colored nickel, but they got this dark looking vibe to them. So there are some marks on them. This kit is used. I don't think it was played live on stage. It's mainly a studio kit, but it's very dirty. But outside, the finish just popped, just like amazing sunburst. I have an earlier version of this kit. I'm not sure of, like it's a birch kit. The shell thickness looks thinner on this snare than mine. I could be wrong. All birch shell, so that's why I bought it. I love birch. Not to mention it was a good deal. And I have a black to blue ocean fade kit. This one is scarlet fade and red, and I kind of wanted the two color combination. So I'm going to try and figure out how to clean these. Probably just clean them with a spray car polish. Something light and not aggressive. I'm going to check all the screws inside. That's a thing you should do every time you change your drum heads, is make sure your lug screws are snugged up. But it is a beautiful color. So, and we'll see what we can do to make it sound good. I'm not crazy about the sound of it right now. It's like totally different than mine. Mine sounds killer. So putting white grease or Vaseline on these threads so you can get a little more tuning variables, because if these threads start to get dry and full of dust, it's hard to get them to tune tighter. So we'll see what the scoop is. The snare release is beautiful in this color. I love it. Yeah, it's definitely nice. Definitely needs some love. There's some there's some marking in here, and it's just needs some love. So that's the scoop, what we're doing today anyways, and then we're going to tackle the drum set. Okay, that's it for part one of this. I guess part two if you count the gold crown or gold Remo gold crown snare. So we'll call this part two, snare drum number 2. Okay, just a little update. Just so you know, when your skins are done, you see how concave this is? Now I've loosened this off. This has been on here way too long. You'll never tune this. You'll never get a brighter sound because the skin is just, you could eat cereal out of it. This is common. There's a little bit of a heavy hitter on this. So this skin is junk, so we're going to put a brand new one on, and we'll check the bottom head too. It doesn't look too bad, and it's the signature one, which I kind of like. But this one is done, so that's how you tell. And you get the cereal bowl effect, like this big, you can eat your Fruit Loops out of it. Time to change the drum heads. A lot easier to tune them. Here's the soup bowl effect. When you start getting 1 inch of play, there's no way you're going to tune this snare and get a good sound out of it. It's going to sound choked. Yeah, so total crap. It's done. New head's coming. Okay, so we got the snare drum taken apart. We already know the beater side or the batter side of the snare. The skin has got to be changed. The bottom one is A-OK. I'm not replacing that. It's also the name brand one, and it's pretty good shape, so I'm going to keep that. So here's the shell. I recommend You take all the lugs off when you're cleaning a drum set you just purchased and that needs some TLC. What I recommend is you put obviously stuff in tubs, but as you're taking the screws out, if there's a lug and a screw that seem like, okay, they're not coming out easy or they seem stripped, obviously separate those, because you'll have to retap the threads inside here and or put a replacement screw or retap that screw. If neither one is salvageable, you have to go to a slightly bigger size and you'll have one oddball one. In this case, the screws are black, so you can paint the largest size that you have to tap. You can paint them black and it looks nice. No issues so far with this drum. I've had good luck with Tama drums, especially in the last 20 years. Their drums are pretty consistent and their quality control is good. This bearing edge is beautiful. You can usually tell when you rub your finger just on the edge like this, you can feel any dips or imperfections. Now this isn't even their top of the line drum. I mean, it's definitely good quality. I mean, and I'm surprised people don't buy these Superstar drums up because they are a killer drum set. Now, these I think they're probably made in China. I don't know if they say or not. I'm not sure. Yeah, made in China. So, I mean, some people are against that. Whatever. They sound good. Now, this drum shell and this snare looks thinner than on my Superstar, but they are not the same series and not the same year. So, I just find snare drums that are thin like this takes a little more to get sound out of, but we'll make it work. So the finish is beautiful. It is like a dark to light red, scarlet red fade. And trying to get the badge up here. And it doesn't look like any gouges or anything on this snare drum. I haven't checked the rest of the kit. But this should polish up super nice. We're going to use either Mother's or Maguire's polish on this. Just a spray polish, because really you're just cleaning up. You're not doing any heavy duty work on it. These lugs, same thing. There's a couple of marks. That is unavoidable sometimes, and you know, when you're banging things around. This needs extensive cleaning. Snare releases are usually a catcher's mitt for dust, so you got to get the Q-tips out, lots of cleaning fluid, and go from there. But the lugs themselves actually all look great. There's maybe, I think, 2 that have a couple of marks on, but I can live with that. That's no problem. If you're really picky, sometimes you can buy lugs online. They're like new old stock. I've done that in the past. I'm not that crazy for this kit. I like it clean, but I don't mind the used. You know, it's got a history. It was in the studio, this kit. It's got a history. Probably a number of drummers played it. Who knows? But I like that. I don't mind the marks on it. So I just like to have things clean for when I first start playing them. So, all right, we're going to keep going. Polishing stage now. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the cleaning products I'm going to be using. This varies depending on the drums condition, like how much dirt, how much whatever. If the drums are really dirty, I use like a damp sponge with regular dish soap, like Sunlight, and just kind of get all the dirt off the plastic finish. These drums here are painted, clear coated, so they're not the plastic finishes you see in cheaper drums. If you want to clean the finish on a plastic drum, this is the best. I've been using this for years. Fantastic for cleaning the drums, but make sure clean cloths and make sure you clean the surface, any dirt, grime. Try and get that off with a clean soft rag and some soapy water. You don't have to saturate it, Just do it in small circles and get the stuff off. And then when you hit it with this, it's great. I suggest you take all the lugs off of every drum when you're cleaning this stuff. It just makes it so much easier for you, believe me. You're never going to save time. It's never going to be an easy, fast job. But the less headache is to take it all off, do the shell perfect, and go from there. Now, I oil the insides of the drums normally. I'm not going to do it on these ones. They're fine. They do have a coating in them, even though it doesn't look like it. There is a slight coating on there to seal the drums. But I oil them with an English furniture polish. Do the bearing edges with that stuff. Sometimes I wax the bearing edges just like skis. There's all little tricks that you can do to make your drum happy and help it to tune better. I've used this on finishes that are really good, very high quality finishes. I've used this stuff, but the cost of this stuff is like crazy. It doesn't smell that great, and I'll be honest, the shine is fine, but to get it to shine takes more elbow grease than I like. These two here I use a lot. They're just a spray wax. Works great on drums, especially like today, where the drums are not really anything but dusty with some fingerprints. Now this says Mother's on here because the container broke and took the cap with it. So Mother's wax, the same spray wax as these type. They're all good. They're all different consistencies, but they all work great. Anything to do with chrome, this is fantastic. This has been around for decades and decades and decades. So use that on brass, and it'll blow your mind how great this stuff works. It's not available everywhere though. Now I get asked all the time about the tension rods and what I use to grease the tension rods. These are tension rods that hold the rim down to keep the skin in place and to tune it. I take Vaseline. I just put it in the first, about that much of the thread. Not too thick. It'll spread up the thread as you go into the lug. I've used this for years. And people say, well, it dries out. Well, if it's drying out, it's because you're too lazy to change your drum heads often. Because every time I change my drum heads, I clean this up and put fresh stuff on. Never, ever had a problem. Ever. So if this is drying out, that means you haven't changed your drum heads in like years. So that is your fault, not the fault of this. I also use this. I use that a lot in the snare mechanisms. Right here. This part here, this part here. I try and get some on the threads in the inside. Like this one feels really stiff. It has not had any grease on it. So that is going to get some. You can take some of this thing apart. Most of the stuff is riveted. This is actually a really nice snare release. So you definitely want to keep it clean. You don't want it failing, because any dirt that gets in these swivel hitches here, or these hinges, any dirt in there will start to wear things out. So, but this is Tama makes some nice stuff. So that's the scoop. So we're into the cleaning process of the shell. Okay, the shell is done. It's all nicely buffed. I don't bother showing you that because that's just a boring thing to look at, but nice and shiny. It's like one little mark on this shell. Other than that, it's nice. Good enough for rock and roll. So now the lugs. And they'll just get car polished because there's nothing seriously flawed in them except for like one mark and stuff. And this powder coating, you can't really do much about it. I mean, I've touched some things up to try and match the color of certain powder coatings and just dab clear over it, and it works fine. But I mean, do what you got to do to make it look pretty. Okay. What I use to clean these are white socks. Usually buy them cheap. They work fantastic. I've been using these for years. With these kind of lugs here, we're basically just cleaning dust and fingerprints off. So I've got one that for the wax, one for the drying. These are powder coated. So just spray them in here. And these are beautiful lugs. There's lots of contours and stuff. Unfortunately, those contours, you get a lot of dirt caught in there. So just try and get your fingernail into some of those grooves. Use Q-tips too. Nothing too aggressive. Sometimes lugs pit and start to age, and there's not much you can do about that. You can either replace them. The chances of you having these recoated to the exact finish is a long shot. So it's best to find, something on eBay to replace them. Thankfully, this lug seems to be not too bad. I got one mark on here that's not coming out. I'm going to try it a little bit more here. And it's not so much, it looks like a stain, but it is definitely not coming out. So, not sure what that is. It's not so much a scratch because I don't feel an edge, but hard to tell. But right there, I can live with that. Sometimes you can buff them on a machine. I have a machine in my garage, but you got to watch some of these powder coats. Too much heat with the buffing, and it makes them go wonky a bit. And just give it a quick bufferoonie here with the clean white sock. Yeah, I find that white socks don't fray, I guess would be the word. You don't get dust particles like other cloths and stuff. So that turned out beautiful. So that stain is there, but hardly noticeable. So this has a stain on it, and one other one has a slight scratch, and I can't even see it just from doing this. There it is there. Just a little bit of a rub from another drum where the snare might have touched the tom or whatever, but other than that, looks great. These they just pop right now. So it's amazing what a little bit of wax will do. Now the wax protects these too, eh? It may not protect them from the hits from other parts of the drum set, but what it does is protects it from humid basements. Like my basement has constantly got a dehumidifier going. I like it fairly dry in here. Otherwise stuff starts to pit. It doesn't even have to be outside or on stage, it doesn't take much. All these rubber, these are the spacers that separate the lug from the shell, so you're not damaging the shell. These are very common nowadays. I wish they were around years ago because a lot of finishes got wrecked from just putting the lug on the shell. But the disadvantage to these is they actually muffle the drum shell from vibrating. So it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. So cleaning these, because it's got a function, but most of it is not seen. Sometimes just soap and water is fine. You can use Armor All, but I think with the Armor All, like what I usually do on the bigger ones, is I wipe it all nice, get it clean, and then I dry it off again. I don't let that stuff sit on there and air dry. But other than that, so we're into the snare releases, the rubber grommets, and the snares going back together. Actually, no, I lied. I got drum rooms to clean, which are real easy. Yeah, the drum is on its way back together. It looks beautiful. It just pops. Once you just put a little bit of wax on it, it looks great. Now, these lug or tension rods seem longer. And I'm just wondering if they got changed out for maybe one of the floor toms. I'm going to keep an eye on this because they look longer than they should be for the slugs. What happens is you don't want the two tension rods coming into the lug and touching. Otherwise you can't tighten them because they're fighting into each other, or they're screwing into each other. So I'm going to check that. Other than that, it looks great. Alrighty, the Superstar snare is all clean, new heads, and sounds pretty good. Different than the other one, but still, it turned out beautiful. A couple of little marks on two lugs, nothing too bad. And the snare release, and we'll give it a quick little test drive. I love this release. Greased it up too, so there she is. This birch shell. And I like these straps on here. The material, kind of a neat touch. Okay, we'll give it a little quick test. And go from there. A little bit of a muffle on it. We'll go without muffling first. Kill that overtone. I like the overtone. A little bit of muting there. Too much muting for me. I like it to have a little singing. I don't usually muffle my drums that much, so I kind of like that right there. Just a hair of the ring, I like that. So there we go. This beautiful Superstar drum by Tama is complete. Now we just have to clean the rest of the kit slowly but surely. We'll dial it all in. Thanks for watching.